Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today's video is going to be about my Crucible 3.21 League Path of Exile character experience and Ruthless review. It is a video that goes over a lot of different topics and is more or less of like a vlog of my experiences this time around playing Ruthless and the new league and all the changes and how that worked out with the few characters. I didn't make just one character this league. So you guys are in for a ride here. So when the league was announced, they showed a trailer and they showed the idea that some of the nodes can give powerful attributes to the item. And they also highlighted the fact that you can get a node that you can sell the item for a unique version of it. And this kind of piqued my interest because in Ruthless, uniques are generally pretty rare. It is fairly possible, fairly likely even, to make a character around a single unique because Alva, the Temple of Exile or whatever, you have the unique flip chamber, which you are highly incentivized to do in Ruthless. You can usually flip a unique a number of times in there, and if the unique is not too rare, you can expect to get one. I also learned that Ritual is a particularly powerful mechanic in Ruthless because when you get the Uber Ritual, and I'll show you guys what that is in a moment, you can have access to some uniques that are usually a bit too rare to expect to find in the game. So with those two pieces of information, I thought I would make a character around Bitter Dream. My goal in Ruthless always is to have a character that can do any map, Elder or Shaper Guardian, because those maps actually drop disproportionately high amount for Ruthless in high maps, and the only real preventative part of it is the difficulty. The difficulty kind of prevents you from doing it, but if you can make a character that is really strong, you might be able to actually farm those maps and sustain high maps in Ruthless while having crazy amounts of drops and difficulty in those maps. So I thought I would make a character around Bitter Dream. So Bitter Dream is a Shadow Scepter, which is a fairly low-level base, but it's not that low. It is a base that does drop quite frequently in maps, and I thought I would use the Crucible mechanic to just spam every single Shadow Scepter I get and drop it in, and I could most likely get a Bitter Dream fairly early. Also, I want to mention that in previous leagues, in the original Ruthless Alpha, in the original Ruthless release, and in the Ruthless with Gold, all three of which I played, and all three of which I found a Bitter Dream. Bitter Dream has been buffed lately to where you have level 15 Bone Chill, Hypothermia, Ice Bite, Cold Pen, added cold damage, and Inspiration. Now, there are very few skills that actually utilize all of those gems, but the ones that do are ridiculously strong, especially for Ruthless, where you can't really be expected to find a 6-link. One of those skills is Glacial Cascade, which is notably good if you can get enough area of effect. And the Crucible modifier, which I would then try to find on a shield, has trigger level 20 Ice Nova, or Frost Nova is it, when you hit something with the final hit of Glacial Cascade. So I theorycrafted a character that would deal like 4 million cold DPS, hard casting, and I was really proud of it, and all I really need to do is find a Bitter Dream. As you might imagine, that never happened. But the character was this one, and this is on the Casual Kripp YouTube channel. If you guys want more PoE content and you didn't quite catch all the crazy moments that happen on stream, we have a second channel for you guys. It is official. It is entirely a passion project for Salt Chronicles, our editor. He only plays a little bit of Path of Exile, but he knows what's cool and he knows the big moments. So this is actually me doing my first and second special ritual, which is kind of like the Uber ritual where you get some of those powerful unique items, and this is the character I effectively was playing. It was a cold dot because I couldn't really, I didn't have enough reason to play the Glacial Cascade version. Cold dot is a really good starter because you can use a multitude of skills and effectively get a lot of passive damage, which is very good for Ruthless. Hierophant got massively buffed, especially for Ruthless. On one count, the Arcane Surge is now like cast speed or something. But for Hierophant, it gives 20% more spell damage as part of the Ascendancy if you get that node, and you scale up that 20% with Arcane Surge effect because it is part of Arcane Surge itself, which is a very interesting mechanic. Also, it's very difficult to make a character knowing that you'll get like certain auras like, oh, I don't know, Determination. So Hierophant gets passive minimum endurance charges, which are extremely powerful. And overall, I was actually so proud of the character I had made. But at the end of the day, we didn't get Bitter Dream. So I actually shelved the character. I was at a point where I had done Searing Exarch. I had done Eater of Worlds, and I was effectively just spam farming maps, and the only way that I could move the character into a tier where I could farm Elder and Shaper maps and really go consistently in the endgame is by getting a Bitter Dream. And I was just pointlessly farming 4-1 up until around like day 8 or 9 of the league, where people started showcasing certain versions of the Explode Totems. This one. Totems explode on death, dealing 600% of their life as physical damage. And I actually had saved an item through my Scepter Crucible adventure, which largely didn't work, by the way, because one thing they did in Ruthless is they lowered the amount of white and blue items dropping, and getting to level 90, which is like level 98 in the regular game, by the way, I only had about 20 or so Shadow Scepters. So I didn't get any with like the vendor for the unique, but I got one with the Totem Explode, so I kept it because I thought it looked pretty cool. And yeah, that was a bit of a bummer. In fact, that mod for Ruthless is so rare, I have never found it on any item, despite spamming it like crazy on bows and scepters and shields and everything. That modifier does not look how many remnants. This is Ruthless, guys. Look how many I have. It's insanity, right? So I didn't get the Bitter Dream, but the Totem playstyle seemed pretty good. And 1 weekend, I actually had the only Devouring Diadem in Ruthless, which is really funny because 1 week in, I actually had the only, where is it? 2 Devouring Diadems in Ruthless. I got it on my first kill. I was spamming Syndicate because I was really trying to get the Spectre Shield in order to use Crush Claws just for their cold debuff on the Hierophant. I actually tried to use them in this build as well, but that didn't really work out because while it works out just fine for all content, when you do Crucible to 100, they just die instantly. Yeah. The Crucible 100 just breaks everything except extremely powerful characters. Thankfully, this is one of them. So let's just quickly go over some of the stats. This character just existing here, no anything. And I do get 6 frenzy charges, and they give evasion. The endurance charges give armor. So this is the lowest amount you get. About 30,000 armor, 44,000 evasion. I got some energy shield that's being used as mana. Max all resist. It is champion, so I get the passive fortify, 20% less damage taken. And there's a lot of cool mechanics. The Devouring Diadem thing, like I have hatred on Divine Blessing, so I actually have Desecration to regenerate my mana when the Diadem procs. It's a really interesting mechanic. I hadn't even really considered it before. But you can just see it jump up every now and then. So actually, if you have Desecrate, just level 1 Desecrate with a Diadem build, yeah, you sometimes have to cast it, but it's unbelievably strong. So I'm not going to go into great detail because, you know, everyone has been playing this Totem build, and the way that I looked at it is, well, I'm playing Ruthless, I have to play what a strong build is, but also this is clearly not going to make it next league. Most likely Crucible is going to be pushed out of the game next league, and if it's not, there's no chance in hell that this is not nerfed. I ended up trying to get the extra totems as well. Both items had this link, but when I combined it, I lost it. But I ended up getting a 6-link bow. I did 30 fusing Varici about 7 or 8 times and used about 100 of my own fusings. So I maybe about 400 fusings deep, but I only did it when I had a Mariketh bow with the 16 extra quality. So that with the maximum 28 that you can get through a Mastermind level 3, whatever, that you can't get 30. 44 quality, so that helped a good bit. So I still got pretty lucky to get a 6-link. It is my first 6-link on a real decent item in Ruthless ever. This character is so strong that I think I only made one character ever, even in non-Ruthless, stronger than it. This character completely deletes the game. I did like Shaper, for example, and you know, when I'm throwing totems, I could see his health move. Every single time a totem exploded on him, I could see his health move, which is mind-blowing to me, because he has like, what, 70 million health? So by my estimation, this character does about 20 million DPS. It has completely ridiculous defenses. It has completely ridiculous sustain, because did you know, Life Leech works. The totem exploding is your damage. It is not based on the links, so the links, you just want to crap out as many totems as possible. You want them to proc multiple times with multi-totems, and this character generally scaled it with cold. And I'll explain why I made a cold hierophant and why I made a cold totem explode. A lot of people are playing this build with poisonous, which is fine, but in Ruthless, I didn't have Herald of Agony. Actually, I still don't have Herald of Agony, and I think without Herald of Agony or significant poison chance, it is not really worth it to play the poison version. I think the fire version with like Chieftain or whatever is like the real league starter version, and I think this is like the best non-poison version. I can't say if the poison is better because there's massive advantages and a lot of lessons that I learned through this Ruthless session, let's say. So why are we playing so many cold builds? Well, we're playing lots of cold builds because of the new cold mastery. Enemies permanently take 5% increased damage for each second they've ever been frozen by you, for a maximum of 50%. This is one of the new masteries that came in, and it is incredible. It is so insane. And the reason is, it's just not that hard to freeze stuff if you do lots of damage. Okay, it's really it. And this totem build, 100% cold convert. Look at that double corruption, by the way. Elemental hit on hit, elemental weakness on hit and life. Oh my god. So we convert all of our damage to cold. We get extra fizz as cold from that. And we get 10% of fizz as chaos just for extra hit damage. And we get 10% of fizz as damage of another random element. And we have Hatred with Divine Blessing. It's about 100% effect, so we get another like 40 fizz, sorry, about 50 fizz is cold, and then on top of that, 40 more cold. And it just scales to an insane amount. This character literally is freezing every single boss in the game. Bosses that are pinnacle bosses, like Shaper, for example, they can't be slowed below 40%, I think. So, but below their 60%. You can't slow them more than 40%, I think. But the freeze effect still applies. This bonus still applies, and it is insane. Another tool, and one of the big discoveries in this league for me, it is not one that I see anyone really use, and maybe there wasn't that much of a reason to use it before, but Vortex with elemental proliferation is crazy. Okay, Vortex just does pretty decent damage, but unless you're making a character where all of your damage is Vortex, this is possibly the most overpowered defensive mechanic I have ever used. The idea is that if you use Elemental Prolif and you freeze any target around you, all of the targets around you get frozen. You don't actually need to be crit. You don't need to scale freeze because Elemental Proliferation just has 20% chance to freeze, and you just by default getting a couple cold passive, you get it to like 30 or 40%. If you have like, let's say 20 monsters around you, if you freeze one of them, they're all frozen. And in my experience, you always freeze one of them. I don't know if it kind of works, you know, non-RNG based like Evasion does. Maybe it doesn't, but you know, the chances are high that it just, you can expect it to work basically. And you have Bone Chill for increased effect of cold ailments, a little bit of extra damage. Vortex is a ridiculous support skill, and with this proliferation effect, you're going to freeze extremely high health rares because you're freezing the targets that are beside them. So you're going to actually get the increased damage taken for every second that's ever been frozen by you on targets you couldn't even freeze, like some of the, you know, Giga Chad rares that exist in the game. So it's a super powerful effect. I was really, really pleased to figure that out. Another one is Herald of Purity. I was actually using Herald of Purity with Meat Shield on my hierophant. It was giving me no damage boost, but the idea is that a max level Herald of Purity are just about healthy enough, even with no resist nodes, just about healthy enough to just stay in the fight. Okay, they're going to get like two-shotted, but if you're using builds that have a lot of hits, and the Totem has a lot of hits, and especially if you get a little bit of bonus with Meat Shield, the Meat Shield is going to make them constantly taunt. The bosses are never going to attack you with this combination. And some people don't actually know this, but when something is taunted, it does 10% less damage to all other targets. So Herald of Purity is giving me a 10% less damage taken buff as well, in addition to, well, just never being attacked by bosses, which is, well, that is hard to measure. But yeah, I got really lucky. I got early determination. I got early grace. I got the only diadem. We're playing champion, so I have the aura node. So where is it here? Oh yeah, it's here. So Defiance Banner costs nothing to activate, so you want to put it with Arrogance. This character is nearly crit immune from Defiance Banner, which may not make a lot of sense, but basically Defiance Banner gives 40% reduced critical chance to nearby enemies, right? So if you have a 150 aura effect with Defiance Banner, the monsters around you have no crit. And because of the helmet chant that I got, which is probably the best one for this character, they're very, very close to that. I'm over 100% on it, over 100 effect on Defiance Banner, not 150, which is what I need, but it's pretty close. I almost never get crit. And yeah, this character is just an absolute monster. It is one of the strongest characters I've ever made. I'm killing every single target, including map bosses, in like 1 second. I'm killing Shaper. I'm watching his health get chunked, right? Like it's just ridiculous. And honestly, that's part of the problem. Ruthless still has the low sustain in like maps. It has the low progression. Like I don't really have that many like Uber maps, right? Like I have one Constrictor, one Hydra, one Chimera, one Minotaur, but like that's about it. And to get enough of these maps to actually do Shaper, to do Elder, to do Uber Elder, to even do Maven, like I was doing actually, is it here? No, it's in the fragments, right? Yeah, I was doing Maven 10s, and most of them weren't even dropping one splinter, even though they were rare, right? So now, sometimes you'd be playing a character, and your character power is slowly going up while you're trying to accumulate these, you know, fragments to challenge the bosses. But in the case for Ruthless, I had a character that, like, did, like, tens of millions of DPS, was completely unkillable, and would kill most bosses from the traps that I would set up before they activated. So the difficulty was super trivial, and it just became kind of like this weird case where all I'm really doing is pointlessly farming stuff to try to get fragments for the bosses that for sure I will kill them once I get enough fragments, and I probably wouldn't even get a whole lot of upgrades. Like I have a 6-link bow, I have a diadem. I mean, yeah, maybe I get an all amulet, but maybe not. Hard to beat that quiver. Hard to beat that ring. I mean, sure, I can get like another 20 life and chaos resist on this ring, maybe a bit more life on the belt, maybe a bit more resists there. The Restless Ward is unbelievably good because we get movement speed per frenzy charge. This is one of the fastest characters I ever played. I actually kind of wanted the cold flask. I never get it, you know. I never really get it. Azir's Promise is pretty good. I'm trying to remember it here. It's the one that gives you fizz damage taken as cold and extra Forbidden Touch, is it? No. I'm forgetting it. Anyway, but the other one, the Wise Oak, is actually really good for this character as well. But its Eater Promise is pretty good too, because again, you leech, and this gives you Fizz as extra chaos and Elemental as extra chaos. So we get both of those effects. It's ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous character. But you guys know Totem Explode is really good. This is just like a crazy version of Totem Explode. You take like no damage, everything is frozen, the bosses die before they barely have a chance to attack even once. You're freezing bosses. When they do attack, they're always attacking your Herald of Purity. You know, all I'm doing is farming shards to actually challenge the bosses. So I did slowly lose interest in Ruthless this league. I found the game a bit too easy as a result of this mechanic. I didn't expect this character to be quite that powerful, because I did make it fairly early on when this wasn't really a popular build at all. But yeah, it is what it is. Overall, Ruthless in general, I think, took a few steps forward and a few steps back this league. To give you guys my Atlas, so I learned that the ritual nodes are really good. If you want to try to get some of the powerful, unique items that are available, ritual is your go-to. I've encountered so many powerful uniques. I have a good deal of even the rarer versions of some of them, like Immortal Flesh, near perfect roll. I have a Perseverance. I mean, yeah, I don't have like a Headhunter or whatever. I have a large number of the rings, despite the ones that I re-rolled. I have like 3 tiers of purities. I have most of the maces and scepters. I have a near perfect Frost Breath. I have a Darkseer. I don't even know if I had this last league in non-Ruthless, right? So Ritual is really, really nice. The gateways aren't really worth using, in my opinion, because the small nodes in Ruthless are very good. In terms of master missions, right now I'm focusing on Alva because I have a 6-link. If I didn't have a 6-link and I still needed substantial upgrades, I would have it on June to get more Syndicate. Syndicate is very good. I had just about all the Syndicate nodes, still do. Delve, 50% loot nerf is pretty big, but it is really hard to sustain maps in Ruthless until you beat Eater and Exarch. When you do that, when you get your 2 Void Stones, because they actually work like the normal game, your lowest tier map is 5. Before you have these Void Stones, map sustain is extremely hard. I would say it's harder than last patch because they nerfed Delve loot by 50%, and Alva averages. It doesn't use your top tier of the Alva missions that you did. Like before, you would do like a tier 16 Alva, and you do like 2 like tier 8s, and bam, tier 16 Temple. Doesn't work that way. Now if you do that, you get like a tier 11. So you have to do 3 of the same. That makes it much harder to get like the volume of maps that Alva would really provide through a temple. But you still get the volume. They're generally a lot worse, and there's a little bit scarcer that you would do that good of a temple. So, you know, until you have those Void Stones, map sustain is horrible. The moment you do your first T16 map is basically when you have finished the progression for maps. Maps are no longer scarce after you do your first T16. I obviously had the Kirok missions and those Kirok missions as well. After you do your first tier 16, Kirok will give you tier 16 maps, and every time you get a Kirok mission, you just do another tier 16 map through Kirok's offerings, and that means you always bounce back up to that tier. You can farm tier 11 maps to get Alva quests, and then when you get a tier 16 map, you do 3 Alvas in a row on tier 16, you instantly stabilize. And when you actually, you know, beat those 2 bosses, no map you ever find is below tier 5, and that is ridiculous. It's still pretty hard to sustain red maps, but anything else is a complete joke. Like last patch in Ruthless, I did still have like a lot of maps, but not like this league. Like this league, like the amount... I have 62 tier 10 maps. Okay, and the reason I have like fairly few of some of them, like what was it? I was running Shore. So here's how I would play. I would do like 50 Shore maps and just go kill the boss and do the Crucible. I was boss rushing tier 10 maps, and I still have 62 of them after doing a whole lot of that. Okay, this stash tab would fill with tier 10 maps. The amount of yellow maps that you get after beating the first 2 bosses is unbelievable. Okay, reds are still a bit scarce, but still, when you have the Void Stones, it's not too bad. That divide is huge. You know, you go from like pure map poverty before you actually kill those bosses and get the Void Stones, and then when you kill them, it's just like you do whatever you want. You know, endless yellow maps, endless, you know, 8, 9, 10, even tier 11 red maps to farm quests for your tier 16. It's like crazy. But yeah, I don't have more Delve nodes than just these because Delve loot nerf certainly plays a role. Syndicate is just good for getting a stronger character. The ban nodes are very good for constantly forcing mechanics. I really liked Ritual. Ritual was pretty good for experience, pretty good for mob count, pretty good for loot. Even non-Uber rituals, you would often find like some currency or like a map of similar tier than the one that you're in, which is very powerful. I try to do Breach in order to get like the Breach invitation going, but the Breach splinters are so rare. I had Harvest until I flipped it over because I got 5,000 blue whatever juice for getting the quality mod on the bow. So once I got that, I flipped to Breach, but Breach is so slow. You get like nothing. You get like maybe 1 splinter per Breach. It's ridiculously low. But the Ritual's pretty good. If you're doing tier 14 maps, you want Remnants of the Past because 1%, I believe this is affected by all the other map dropping nodes. And if you get one of those maps, you're surely getting some maps in those. The 2% chance for maps to be 1 tier higher is very good. The 1% increased maps found in your maps is very good. Again, all the masters are useful except Einhar. Einhar is very bad. Honestly, if there was a node, even if it was out of the way to ban Einhar missions from like popping up and him from showing up while giving those missions to any other master, I would definitely go for that. It's terrible. But overall, it just felt a bit too grindy, partly because the character power is really high. But yeah, you know, to do an Eater of Worlds, I have to do 50 tier 14 maps and higher. 50, right? Even the invitations kind of feel like a lot. I had to drop the map favorite thing because like they were too scaled on the ones that I would favorite, which is also like really, really weird. There is a pretty good lesson from this league as well. They changed a lot of the resistance passives. I would say that if you're playing a Ruthless character, or if you're planning to play a Ruthless character that doesn't have any all resists as part of the skill tree, especially if it's your league starter, it's a bad character. They removed a lot of the resists from the skill tree that was normally quite accessible. Like you used to get like 15 all resists from any elemental mastery at the very least, right? Nope. A lot of the all resists has been removed from the skill tree. And if you're playing a character, if you're planning to play a character without any of it on the skill tree, you are going to be doomed because it is not easy to get type of items like these in Ruthless. So that's a pretty big change. Another part of Ruthless is auras are still totally busted. It was another example like last league, and I think I did talk about this in the video going over Ruthless in previous league 3.20. I played an armor stacking Juggernaut. I had the highest armor gear I could have like a week into the league, just about. I think it's like day 5 or 6 where I found a Grace Gem. And I had like 15,000 armor. I had about 300% armor on the skill tree. And there was an occultist, the only occultist that remained in the top 10. They had a diadem, and they found a determination gem. And they had 16,000 armor. I had 15,000 armor. They didn't have any armor nodes, right? They had aura nodes and the determination gem. And the determination gem is just a by default. I can't believe it hasn't been changed since the last time it was changed. Determination and grace are just so broken. The gear that you have on your character are almost meaningless compared to the benefit of these auras, which is so backwards. You shouldn't spend the majority of your skill points having 300% armor on the skill tree on an ascendancy that is defined by having more armor, and then having less armor on an ascendancy that has nothing to do with armor, gets no armor nodes, but they have the determination gem, so they're going to have more armor. So that was my experience last league. I ended up finding Grace. I never found Determination last league, but I found Grace. And Grace you can play with Iron Reflex, and you can kind of make it work and have a lot of armor that way, but it's really hard to push through the high maps, especially on your league starter character in Ruthless, if you don't have like a fair bit of armor. And in this league, it was the success bias. Like now, it's still like heavy armor characters. Like I'm 5th with this character. I'm like 11th with my other character, because my other character is like almost level 91, I believe. So, you know, we're still actually top of ladder just about, even though I haven't played that much lately. But like a week into the league, the success bias of Grace and Determination was absurd. It was like 2% of characters or something, 3% of characters had Determination, and about the same had Grace. But if you looked at the top 10, all of the top 10 was using Determination or Grace. To me, that is an unbelievable success bias. So you're asking, why does this happen? Well, in Ruthless, you get a lot less experience killing monsters. There's a lot fewer monsters in your maps. There's a lot fewer mechanics, and mechanics usually spawn a lot of monsters in your maps. And there is a severe experience penalty, which gets worse and worse as you level. Like, going from 92 to 93 is almost like leveling an entire character from 1 to 100 in the regular game. It is that bad. I can do a T16 juiced map for Ruthless, and my experience in some cases won't even go up 1% at this level. So if I die, I lose 10% of that. And it's not like the regular game where it's like, oh, well, you die, you just lost an hour, right? No, it's Ruthless. The literal game is harder. Well, not this league, because we have Totem Explode, but in general. And no one's playing Totem Explode in Ruthless in the first week or so keep that in mind. The reason the top 10 in Ruthless all had Determination or Grace is because the characters that didn't have it were just dying, and the characters that did have Determination or Grace, they just weren't really dying. That's the difference. And for that difference to be entirely based on an RNG gem drop, which is the case for Ruthless, there's no deterministic way to get either of those gems, is insane to me. I think the base game has a massive problem with the power level of defenses through those two auras. But in Ruthless, it's amplified because it's just an RNG drop. You can't even hope to get it. You can't even make a character around it. You know, you get it or you don't. And if you don't, well, what are you going to do? And, well, that's an interesting part of the challenge, but maybe one for next league. Hope you guys enjoyed my PoE vlog for the league, and again, if you want to see more PoE videos of some of the bosses and experiences and cool things that happen, check out the stream or the second channel. Enjoy. Thanks for watching.